Hi, my name is David Knight, and welcome to those amazing Psalms. Psalm 27, Courage and Confidence. As a child, were you afraid of the dark? I was, and sometimes still am. Psalm 27 begins with God as the light of the poet's life, and how this light calms his fear. He's under the shadow of suspicion and under tremendous pressure, but every danger and threat is countered by a confidence that the psalmist has learned the hard way. He has faced times of darkness, and he has learned to trust God as his light. He has wrestled with doubt and has found stability. He has lived with God's silence and learned to wait. So when he says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation," we are hearing the voice of maturity. This is the creation story made personal, where the forces of chaos are subdued by God's powerful voice and life-giving light, and his fears dissipate with the darkness. I will never forget visiting my grandmother in her 80s and reading Psalm 27 to her. I read her the whole psalm, but Grandma was still thinking about the words of verse 1. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" When I finished reading, she said, I used to be so afraid." I asked her what she was afraid of. "Everything," she said, "but especially death. When your granddad was with us, I lived in his shadow. He did the praying for us, but when he was gone, I was on my own. I didn't know how to pray or face the future on my own, and I was very afraid of death. Someone suggested that I read through the Psalms, but it's a long book and I was afraid I wouldn't finish. So I started at the end and I worked back to the front. And by the time I got to the beginning, I wasn't afraid anymore." I don't know how the Spirit used the Psalms to quieten my grandmother's fears, but I learned from her experience that the Psalms do their work mostly subconsciously. The repeat exposure to these laments and psalms of thanksgiving, these prayers of desperation and confession, these poems of trust and hope, they address our doubts and expand our vision and deepen our faith without our even noticing it. And for my grandmother, they brought reassurance that gave her confidence and courage to face the loneliness and the frailty of her final years. Verse 4 expresses the supreme desire of David's heart. "The one thing I ask of the Lord, the thing I seek most, is to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, enjoying the beauty of the Lord and worshiping in his temple." David isn't saying that he wished he were a priest working every day at the tabernacle. He's using God's house in a figurative way of saying that he always wants to be in God's presence, to live with a continual awareness of God's goodness and attention towards him. This is what Jesus referred to as abiding in him. Our hearts hanker after so many things. Some of them are just things that will one day wear out. Some of our desires are goals in life or work or relationships. But David says that his number one longing in life is to have a more active sense of God's nearness and goodness, and to nurture his heart with the beauty of God's character. This hunger for God is expressed in two short prayers. In verse 8, "My heart has heard you say, 'Seek me, come and talk with me.' And my heart responds, 'I'm coming, Lord.'" David is a lifelong seeker after God. He knows that just as marriage is not sustained by a once-for-all vow, but by daily renewal of desire, so David is a continual seeker after God. And then in verse 11 he says, "Teach me how to live, Lord. Lead me along the right path because my enemies are waiting for me, breathing violent threats." He accepts his vulnerability with courage, but not cockiness. He is both a seeker and a lifelong learner. David closes his song by encouraging us as his fellow seekers and learners to share his courage and his confidence. I am confident that I will see the Lord's goodness while I'm still alive. So wait patiently for the Lord. Don't lose hope. Be strong and courageous. And yes, wait patiently for the Lord. Take care.